For over 100 years, we've thought of T.S. Eliot's poem, The Wasteland, as this massive monument to the trauma of World War I. And it is. But what if this famously difficult poem is also hiding a ghost? The ghost of a totally different catastrophe, a global pandemic that history basically tried to forget.
Just think about it for a second, because we've all just lived through this, right? First, there's the crisis itself. But then there's that strange, quiet aftermath. That feeling of exhaustion, the grief, the sense that the world is just subtly but forever different. That feeling, that's what this whole story is about.
Okay, so let's start with a real historical mystery. The 1918 Spanish flu was one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. It killed tens of millions of people. And yet, for decades, it just kind of vanished. It became this cultural ghost, almost completely wiped from our collective memory. The big question is, why?
Well, it seems our culture just remembers these two kinds of tragedies in completely different ways. War, we remember it as a collective effort, full of heroic sacrifice. We build statues and memorials for it. But a pandemic? That's a private battle. It's fought alone, in a sick room. It's seen as a tragic, personal loss, not some noble sacrifice. There's no grand story to build a monument around, so it just fades into silence. And that brings us to the second piece of our puzzle. 4 years after the pandemic finally died down, T.S. Eliot publishes The Wasteland. And right away, it's hailed as this modernist masterpiece, but it was also really, really weird.
I mean, the poem just jumps all over the place. You have different speakers, different languages, scenes that change without any warning. It just feels broken. And for a century, the standard answer was, well, it reflects the chaos and disillusionment after World War I. And that's true. But is it the whole story?
And this, right here, is the big question. Could this poem, the one that's so famous for feeling fragmented and broken, actually be a hidden record of that pandemic experience? Could it be the story of the very trauma that history forgot how to even talk about? To figure this out, we have to start with the man himself. And the evidence begins with one crucial, undeniable fact. T.S. Eliot didn't just live through the pandemic, he was a victim of it.
Just look at this timeline. I mean, the connection is so direct and powerful, it's kind of shocking. In December 1918, right at the peak of the deadliest wave, both Eliot and his wife get sick. For the next 3 years, he's just plagued by this recurring illness, which all leads up to a complete nervous breakdown in 1921. And it's right out of that breakdown that he writes this poem. And listen, these aren't just dates on a calendar. In his own letters, Eliot describes the physical toll it took. This wasn't some abstract historical event for him. This was a deeply personal crisis, physical, mental, the whole thing.
So how do we connect his personal trauma to the poem itself? Well, researchers have this amazing new tool, a critical lens they call viral modernism. And it's basically like putting on a special pair of glasses that help you see what was hidden in plain sight all along. The secret, coded language of a pandemic, embedded right there in the art of the time. Okay, so let's put on those glasses. We're going to apply this viral lens directly to the text of The Wasteland. We're going to look for symptoms of the flu, almost like the poem itself is our patient. Let's start with Exhibit A. This is one of the most famous lines in the entire poem. For years and years, critics read this as, a spiritual thing, a reference to Buddhist teachings or the fires of damnation. But when you look at it through our new lens, the meaning becomes shockingly direct. It's not just a metaphor. It's the literal, physical feeling of a body just consumed by a raging fever. The feeling of being burned alive from the inside out. So what about all the bizarre, nightmarish stuff in the poem? I mean, look at this. Bats with baby faces, crawled head downward down a blackened wall. It is pure nightmare fuel. This is a perfect example of what scholars call delirium logic. It's that hallucinatory state you get with a super high fever, where reality just bends and the world feels literally upside down. This suggests the poem's broken structure isn't just some artistic choice. It's actually mimicking the disconnected, chaotic thoughts of a feverish mind. So you see, once you start looking, the symptoms are everywhere. The poem's very structure is delirium logic. It directly describes a burning fever. It is absolutely obsessed with a desperate, dehydrating thirst for water. And it's filled with this pathogenic atmosphere, a constant wind and fog that just screams of an invisible, airborne threat. But the poem doesn't just capture the sickness itself.
It's also this profound, haunting look at the trauma that comes after the fever finally breaks.
The wasteland is famously full of corpses and bones, and we've always connected them to the battlefields of World War I. But what if they also represent something else? The material reality of the civilian corpse, all those bodies that piled up in cities, in homes, far from any battlefield during the flu.
And beyond the actual dead, the poem captures this feeling of innervated living death. Now that's a key phrase. It basically means a state of being completely drained of all life force, physically and mentally. It's that endless fatigue, that long-haul exhaustion that can follow a really bad illness. And in the poem, it infects everything, not just the people, but the landscape and even the language itself.
So, what does all this mean? Why does it matter right now to reread a 100-year-old poem in this brand new way?
It means the poem becomes something new. It becomes the monument that the Spanish flu never, ever had. In this light, art acts as a kind of archive for all the feelings, the delirium, the fear, the exhaustion that official history just didn't know how to record. It preserves the raw, human experience of the pandemic. And that leaves us with this final, powerful idea. Maybe the evidence was right there in front of us the whole time. The real challenge wasn't in T.S. Eliot writing his experience into the poem. It was in us, a century later, finally learning how to read it. And that makes you wonder, what other hidden histories are just waiting for us, hiding in the art we think we already know?